Listen to me now, because I'm going to tell you the truth, raw and unfiltered. The room is shaking, the tension is thick, and the world is holding its breath. Something just exploded on the global stage, and it's not missiles. It's diplomacy, it's power, it's the clash of titans. You hear the name Jaishankar, and you think quiet, calm, diplomatic. No. Today you hear that name, and you feel the ground move under your feet. This is not the polite handshake. This is not the carefully staged smile. This is a power move, a shot across the bow, the kind of move that makes allies nervous and opponents start sweating. The air was already tense, the kind of atmosphere you could cut with a knife, when the statement landed like a thunderclap. This wasn't a polite nudge or a careful whisper in the quiet halls of diplomacy. This was a bold, unmissable declaration that sent ripples through every corner of the political world. Jaishankar'S power move wasn't just another diplomatic comment to be filed away in some report. It was a direct, calculated shock to the system. You could almost hear the gears of the global machine grinding to a halt as leaders, analysts, and policymakers tried to process what had just happened. In international politics, words are chosen with surgical precision. They are measured, weighed, and polished to avoid unnecessary waves. But here, the choice was deliberate in the opposite direction, designed to cause impact, to shake the ground under the feet of those listening. This wasn't reckless. It was strategic, like a master fighter delivering a single, clean punch to the opponent's guard, knowing exactly where to hit and how hard. The timing was no accident either. The world stage is a battlefield of perception, and in this moment, the conditions were perfect for a statement that would grab attention and refuse to let go. There had been simmering tensions, quiet disagreements, and growing whispers about independence of action. Jaishankar didn't just step into that conversation. He took control of it. He grabbed the microphone, metaphorically speaking, and made sure every ear in every capital was tuned in. And it wasn't just the content of the message, it was the delivery. Calm, steady, with an undercurrent of absolute certainty. This was not a man asking for permission or trying to win approval. This was a man speaking from a position of strength, backed by a nation that knows its value and refuses to be diminished. The body language, the tone, the pacing, every element carried the weight of confidence and conviction. You could almost see the reactions in real time. Across the ocean, in Washington, brows furrowed and notes were scribbled down furiously. In Europe, officials paused mid-conversation to glance at news alerts. In Asia, there was both surprise and admiration, a recognition of the sheer audacity of the move. In diplomatic circles, there's an unspoken rule that you don't upset the balance too much in public. But rules mean little when the balance itself no longer serves your interests. What makes a move like this so powerful is not just the immediate shock. It's the long-term reverberation. Words fade from headlines, but they don't fade from memory. Every negotiation from this point forward carries the imprint of this moment. Every discussion about partnership, alliance, or cooperation will have this unspoken subtext: India has drawn a line, And it is not moving it for anyone. It is in these rare flashes of clarity that you can feel the shift of global weight. The center of gravity moves ever so slightly, but significantly. One side gains leverage, the other is forced to rethink its approach. It is not just a single statement. It is the declaration of a posture, a stance that will shape the tone of interactions for years to come. The shock wasn't a mistake, it was the point. This was not about avoiding waves, it was about creating them, about letting the world know that the days of quiet compliance are over and a new era of assertive diplomacy has arrived. It was a moment of pure clarity, the kind of statement that slices through all the noise and lands with undeniable weight. India, through the words of its foreign minister, made it clear that the era of quiet alignment under the shadow of bigger powers is gone. The message was not wrapped in soft diplomacy or coded with ambiguous language. It was sharp, direct, and unmistakable. This was a nation asserting its sovereignty in a way that left no room for misinterpretation. For decades, India has played the delicate game of balancing relationships, keeping doors open on all sides, and navigating the competing interests of global powers. But this declaration marked a different energy, a more decisive tone. It wasn't the usual hedging of words or the careful threading of diplomatic needles. Instead, it was an open statement of independence, a visible stand against any form of external pressure, especially from the United States. The United States, long accustomed to influencing the direction of its partners, suddenly found itself faced with a refusal it could not easily sidestep. The refusal wasn't couched in aggression, nor was it delivered with theatrical outrage. It was, in many ways, more powerful because of its calm, composed certainty. This is the sort of refusal that draws its strength from quiet confidence. The kind that says we know who we are and we decide our own path. The sovereignty India was asserting here went beyond just politics or economics. It touched on identity, on the very way the nation sees itself in the modern world. Sovereignty is not just about borders or government decisions. It is about the right to choose, to decide without the subtle coercion of trade threats, military offers, or political bargaining chips. The statement conveyed that India will listen, it will engage, but it will not be directed. And make no mistake, the context matters. This was not happening in a vacuum. The global landscape is shifting. Alliances are being tested, trust is being questioned, and power is no longer concentrated in just one or two capitals. In such a moment, for India to plant its flag so firmly in the ground and declare its independence of action sends a ripple far beyond bilateral ties. It forces every partner, every ally, and every rival to recalibrate how they deal with New Delhi. The choice of language was careful but forceful, the kind that closes doors to misinterpretation while still maintaining the dignity of the conversation. It was not an attack. It was a statement of principle. The kind of principle that says we are open to cooperation, but never at the cost of our own judgment. It's the difference between being a participant in a partnership and being a subordinate in one. Such moments also resonate deeply with the domestic audience. Citizens watch and listen, and they see their leaders standing firm against a superpower. It reinforces a sense of national pride, the feeling that their country is not just playing in the global game, but is capable of setting some of its own rules. It strengthens trust in leadership because it proves that decisions are being made from a position of strength rather than fear of isolation or retaliation. In Washington, such a stance is not taken lightly. It disrupts the assumption that influence is a given, that certain nations will naturally align when called upon. For the United States, this kind of pushback requires a reassessment of its approach, not just toward India, but toward any nation watching closely to see how this situation unfolds. When the words came out, they did not land softly. They struck like a heavy blow, precise and unmissable. This was not a casual remark meant to fill space at a press event. This was a verbal hammer, a statement forged with intention and delivered with the full weight of conviction. Every syllable carried a force that made even seasoned diplomats sit up straighter, aware that they had just witnessed a moment that could alter the tone of international relations. In diplomacy, tone is everything. Sometimes leaders speak in polite generalities, careful to avoid anything that might ruffle feathers. But in this case, the tone was deliberate, sharp, and impossible to ignore. It wasn't loud or theatrical. It was controlled, and that control made it more powerful. Like a heavyweight fighter throwing a single, measured punch, there was no wasted motion, no overreach. The strength came from precision and timing. The phrase, reshaping the strategic balance, isn't an exaggeration here. Every country, every alliance exists within a constantly shifting network of influence and leverage. When one player makes a move that openly defies the expectations of another, especially a superpower, it sends shockwaves through that network. This was one of those moves. It made partners question their assumptions, made rivals reevaluate their strategies, and forced observers to update their maps of the geopolitical game board. The verbal hammer in this case wasn't simply about the content, it was about the symbolism. Words can serve as signals, and this was a clear one. The signal was, we do not bend under pressure, and we will not alter our course to please someone else's agenda. Such a signal, when sent from a country with India's size, resources, and influence, changes calculations in capitals around the world. Diplomatic blows like this do not have to come with threats or ultimatums to be effective. Sometimes they are most effective when they are calm and factual, stated without emotional excess. The calmness here suggested preparation. It suggested that this position was not improvised, but had been thought through in detail, backed by the highest levels of leadership, and reinforced by a broader vision for the country's role in the world. One of the most striking elements was how this statement redefined the conversation itself. Before it, the debate might have centered on negotiation points or compromise positions. After it, the conversation shifted to an entirely new framework, one in which India's autonomy was the non-negotiable starting point. That is the power of a verbal hammer. It doesn't just challenge an opponent. It resets the terms of engagement for everyone involved. Such a move also has a psychological effect. In negotiations and diplomacy, perception is as important as reality. When a nation delivers a message like this with such clarity, it builds a perception of strength that extends far beyond the moment itself. Even if nothing changes immediately in policy terms, the way others approach that nation changes. They tread more carefully. They consider their language